We started Peganol in 2010 when Walter got back from Iraq.
We were didn't even know Peganol was really starting. It was just more like us sort of cultivating our relationship as makers and collaborators.
Everything that we make comes up from, or we make them because it's something that we've needed.
She had been asking me to make a tub caddy. She also was really insistent that it was reclaimed wood, something I had never worked with before.
Walter always makes lists of, for what he needs on scraps of wood, and one day I saw this piece of wood with a list on it, and it was kind of chalk tablet size, and it was just immediately clear that that was going to be our chalk tablet. So I ran out to Walter, and this is when our shop was in our house, and he was working on something else, and I said, this is what we need to make, and he's like, I'm working on something else. I was like, no, this is what we need to make. So he made it, and it was perfect. We widened it a little after some use and changed some things, but that's how that came to be. And often, we do work so closely on things, so often we're arguing over who came up with the idea first.
Because Margot is definitely more the idea, just naturally the idea person. And so I like to think some of them are mine.
We started using antique wood and antique materials just because of our natural love for history and elements that have already existed and have already experienced, life and marks.
Everything we make is made here in Philadelphia. It is all has an aspect of reclaim to it, so the wood is all reclaimed from Philadelphia houses and barns that are in the Philadelphia area and factories that are being torn down. So we're turning that into useful things that can continue their life.
Because of the history, because of the marks and everything in the wood and the materials we use, we get to do research and find out stories and kind of give a greater depth to the simple objects that we're creating. This wood comes from primarily 19th century buildings in Philadelphia. This specific piece comes from Ortlieb's Bottle Company, which was built in the 1800s. It's particularly lovely. We use images from antique books and put them on there.
We're making desk caddies, and they're built out of the structural beams from factories. We're making tub caddies, and those come from farms, Lancaster farms, and flooring on old buildings and houses and things like that. This particular batch, it's always changing, but this particular batch comes from an office that was paneled with oak from the University of Pennsylvania. So this was an office in the University of Pennsylvania. It was all paneled with this oak, and they were taking it down and remodeling it. So we took out that paneling and we turned it into this. We also use leather tabs to hold the pencil on, and the leather tab comes from World War II gunslings. So we use these gunslings for our bags and the handles of our bags, and then whatever's left over we turn into these tabs.
These are what the journals look like inside. Everything's hand-stitched with linen. And I will cover them with antique leather. Here's an example of a piece of leather that came from a sofa from 1950s or so, and a tintype from late 1800s. So the bags are made from wax canvas, which is 100% cotton that's been waxed locally, and we use antique gunslings. So about World War II era. This particular one is Swedish. The inside. On the inside, we do this a little ever-changing detail. This bag is finished with ticking from an old mattress from the 1800s. We also use vintage zippers.
So we use reclaimed materials, I think mostly for the love of what the material once was and how it's gone through a lot of stages of being a tree and then hundreds of years being chopped down, hundreds of years ago being chopped down and turned into a building, and then it lasted for hundreds of years and people lived there, and in and out, and through the centuries the building which was once very useful turned into something that was not. And so now it's being torn down, and we're trying to take those materials and turn them back into something that's useful for everyday life now. And so even though we love the history, we also wanted to make it very relevant to today.